Hello, everybody, and welcome to um, the Hub World podcast. This is actually episode 20, part 2.
Oh
Why is it part
gosh.
2? Because we
Oh
started
god.
our N64 Essentials, made a short list of a grand total of 17 games, and realized that we were over time, and if we progressed, we would be way over time. So we
Oh
decided to split
god.
it up. So
Oh
today we are
god.
going to debate, and we promise this will be a bloodbath. So stay tuned for our opinions.
You
Um,
will be entertained.
you will be entertained. So, just a reminder: my name is Jules from the Hub World.
I'm Matteo.
Hey, it's Gino.
I'm Adriano from your world.
Hello there, it's Riley.
And this is the Battle of the Blood. So
It's blood.
we we're gonna get pretty we're gonna get into it pretty quickly with what our five essential games are. So we're gonna start just deliberating, I think, from here. We have 17 games, which is the largest list of games we've had to do deliberation for. So what I'm going to suggest is to get this out of the way. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to eliminate things that we can all agree shouldn't be here.
Majora's Mask.
What?
Oh,
Gino,
why
you-
hold
sorry.
you know why?
the gunfire. Hold the gunfire. Let me finish. We're going to deliberate which things just, we mentioned them, we nominated them, but clearly with this list are probably not going to make it to the top 5 essential. Then we need to start taking games that we mentioned multiples, unless we really feel I'm not saying we have to for example Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. I'm not saying we have to take one of them off. We could put both of them on the essentials list, but that's a conversation I think we should have after we take off the obvious ones. Then we talk about the ones that we've mentioned, 2 or more games in the same series. Do we keep them both in contention, or do we pick one? And then from there, we break it down to the top 5. So, starting off, I will reiterate the list in case any of you want to write it down. So, we have Diddy Kong Racing. We have Banjo-Kazooie. We have Super Mario 64. We have Snowboard Kids 2. We have Mario Party 3. We have Paper Mario. We have The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. We have Conker's Bad Fur Day. We have Mischief Makers. We have Star Fox 64. We have Banjo-Tooie. Mario Tennis. Mario Kart 64. Donkey Kong 64. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Mario Party 2. And Dr. Mario 64. So, who would like to begin? Who would like to nominate something for elimination?
I think we got rid of Dr. Mario 64 right off the bat.
Okay.
Oh wow, you Adrian just accepting it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we don't even have to get into what I was gonna say. It's gone. Easy.
Well, as much as I really like these games, both of them were on my short list, and I really love them. But I just don't see a way that I nominated Mario Tennis, and I acknowledged in my nomination that I'm just doing it just to pay respect to the game, and the game deserves the nomination. But I'm willing to take Mario Tennis 64 off, but I'm also nominating to take off Conker's Bad Fur Day because
Okay.
Yeah, I can understand why.
because
I-
Conker's
so
Bad Fur Day.
Let's start with Mario Tennis
Okay.
first. So, does anybody disagree with the removal of Mario Tennis?
No,
No.
No,
Mario Tennis gone. Dead. Okay, Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Bad Fur Day, while it's a good platformer, there are platformers that are on here that are way better.
I don't think the appeal of that game is the platforming though.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
the
not.
it's the meta references of the late 90s, early 2000s.
I mean, I I personally agree that it can be removed, but I also don't necessarily disagree with Riley saying keep it on for now.
One thing,
All right. It
I'm-
it complicates things further, like the larger the list is, and like I'm trying to be realistic. Like,
Yeah.
is there a chance that Conker's Bad Fur Day could be on the list if we're talking about diversity? Because Conker's Bad Fur Day, at the end of the day, it is a platformer. That's the genre of the game.
See, I disagree
I
with
think
you.
it straddles
because-
genre lines with
Yeah,
how much stuff it does.
yeah. When I was trying to, so originally when I was trying to make this, like when I had all the games, I was trying to separate them by genre, and I stopped doing that because I realized a lot of the games we have listed are actually, some of them are like cross genre, and Conquer was one of those ones where I was like, sure, like the core gameplay is platformer, but it has so much variety within it that it felt weird putting it with other platformers.
Fair enough, but like the progression of that game is very similar to the progression in like Banjo Kazooie
Yeah.
or Donkey Kong 64. So
Yeah. But in
and
any
like
case, so
yeah,
well, let's just hear everybody. So obviously, it's on Gino, Matteo. You would be okay removing it. Adriano, do you think it's gonna make, like? Do you think it has a chance to be in the top 5?
No.
And Riley, you're the one kind of holding out on it, but I think we'll
that's
all
fine.
respect if you want to keep it on. But
We-
like, also from your standpoint, do you realistically think it will make it to the top 5?
Realistically, no, but so I'm willing to drop it. I think it's other things could go before it, but if
Yeah,
everyone,
well, we're not doing it because we're not necessarily doing this in the sense that, like, just because Conker's going now, it means it's below anything else,
yeah.
right? We're not ranking these. It's just something I think we were comfortable saying that we've all played it, we all like it, but we're all aware that we all probably like other games much more.
that's fair. Okay.
That's where I was coming from on it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On on that note, I have one that I'd like to put up right away because I don't think it's gonna make it, which is Mario Kart. Because I honestly think that every Mario Kart
No.
afterwards was
We
better than it.
we
No.
should save this one.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
one, I think this one is one to save,
Alright.
as well. So I mean, I don't disagree with you, Riley, but we will. I think that's a one to save.
Okay.
Because we'll have to talk about that in tandem with other things.
Yeah.
The other ones. So here are the other underlying ones. So here's the other solo ones that can't really be in a group conversation. I don't know any. Like, honestly, I don't even know what Mischief Makers is.
I do.
So somebody's got to explain what that game is
2D
to me.
It's a 2D scrolling beat 'em up platformer sort of thing.
Okay, so I don't know anything. I don't want to say it should go. I have no opinion on Mischief Makers. So
Neither do
those of you
I.
who know it need to talk about it, because we didn't even talk about the game when it got nominated. So I don't actually know if it's gonna make it to top 5. So that's something. Oh, I know this game. I just looked it up. I've never played it, but I recognize it. But
You recognize it from seeing it at my house?
probably. But yeah, so I guess Adriano and Riley, you've both played it. How do you feel about this game? Do you think it's a contender for top, like the 5 essentials, or how are we feeling about Mischief Makers?
I don't think it's a contender for 5 essentials, but I'll let Adriano
Yeah,
put
we
the
can
names
drop it.
top in if he wants to.
Okay, Mischief Makers is gone. The next one that's kind of a standalone that can't really be talked about in tandem with other things, if I'm just going up the list, is Star Fox 64. And I'm not saying we should drop it. I'm just saying it's not something that we have to talk about in comparison to another game.
I think that one has
Um,
potential, so
I do as well.
I'm definitely saying don't
As do I.
toss that one out yet.
Okay, so that one we'll keep for now. The next one is Paper Mario. Another
I
game that
think it-
doesn't really have a like game.
I think Paper Mario has potential as well.
I do too. Even
Me
though I
too.
do think that
On that
that other
Yep.
like the next game in the series does
I think-
everything that the original one does. I feel
Okay.
like it does it better.
I think the
That's
next
fair.
But for the Nintendo 64, definitely.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we have 13 games, so we still have to shave 8 games. So, considering roster diversity and considering similar games, the first thing we should consider is we currently have 3 racing games on this list. We're most likely not putting 3 racing games in our essentials. Maybe we're going to put 2. but that's a conversation we should have. Is I like my personal opinion is I think there should be one, but I'm open to discussion if people think that we should put 2 racing games.
What about people who think you should put 0?
What does everybody think?
Um,
Well, that's
I
also a
think
possibility too.
I think Diddy Kong Racing is the more unique game on the N64. You can't get that anywhere else. And Mario Kart's been redone many times. Snowboard Kids is
Done
very
better.
obscure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
agree with that.
if it has to be one racing game, I would nominate Diddy Kong Racing.
I completely echo those sentiments,
I think that's a
and
majority right there.
I also, but it's not just about a majority. We want to hear all opinions, but just to add in with Mario Kart, which I already talked about in, I believe it was our episode 4 about Mario Kart as a series. I do not like Mario Kart 64 because I am a massive fan of current Mario Kart. I think Mario Kart games have, for the most part, been getting better, and I love Mario Kart 8. And in my opinion, the dawn of current Mario Kart started with Double Dash. Mario Kart 64, like, honestly, I feel is such a relic. Like, I understand why people liked it at the time because it was the best of what it could do at that time. But I think, like, I can't even personally, I cannot pick up that game now and play it. Like, it feels like chaos to me. So
That's the
personally,
point of
for
the
me,
game. That's the point of Mario Kart 64. It was chaotic, and
I
to
know,
this day,
but
it still has the best battle mode in any Mario Kart game, hands down.
sure, but I'm
And
not
that
picking
is, and that alone is worth it still being considered on the list. It's
Yeah.
Top
it.
5?
Sure,
we can't drop Mario Kart 64 right
but
now.
here's the thing. But here's the thing: is I understand that it has. Again, I think that's very subjective because I do think the battle mode has gotten better. But even if that were the case, even if it did have the definitive battle mode
Who
experience,
plays battle mode?
one, yeah, like battle mode is also just a supplementary material to a racing game, and two, again, in my opinion, the battle mode in Diddy Kong Racing is better.
No, I cannot sit here and have people besmirch the battle mode of Mario Kart 64.
I'm not
Like,
besmirching it. I just think
no.
Diddy Kong Racing has a
Diddy
better
Kong
battle
Racing's
mode.
is, oh, let's pick up eggs and put the incredibly hard to drive plane. Let's pick up the eggs and plop them in our stand, and you're gonna struggle to steal the eggs. Like the controls in the plane
But
combat
that's
in that
just
one battle mode. I know,
That's just
but
one of the battle modes.
the level design of the tracks in Mario Kart 64's battle mode are a step above of anything in Diddy Kong Racing's battle mode. And also just the fact that the balloon battle is the only mode. It's the only mode you need. Like, I just don't think
I
like
love the Static Scraper, but again, I think later reiterations of Mario Kart, they have the same stuff.
look at
You know,
the battle
yeah.
mode that they like. Look at the battle mode they had in the base game for Mario Kart 8. Nintendo thought, and people like, what did people say when that came out? Like, it was awful. They revised
Yeah.
it somewhat in, like, they made it better in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but at the time they're like, you have this amazing battle mode in Mario Kart 64, and like it's just sitting there.
Okay, but I'd
I
also like to point out how many people actually play the battle mode even after they revitalize in Mario Kart 8. And it's not because it's bad. It's because people are upset when things are removed, but like ultimately, like when they're there, sometimes they don't utilize. Like I personally don't think the battle mode is a big enough reason to keep Mario Kart 64. And when I said
you
that,
guys have to consider, like, Mario Kart 64 was the first big multiplayer game that came out on N64.
but I'm considering that it's just the problem is this is N64.
Yeah,
Every one of these games, there's an argument that this was the first of something. And so, like, I understand that Mario Kart
it's
64 was
just
the
as good as
first.
it was in 1996 as it is today. Like
But I think all the battle stuff was the exact same in Double Dash. Like I do remember there being Mario
Yeah,
64
like, and
there's
then,
a balloon
yeah.
system. It's very
I know, like,
similar. I
I
think it's
know
just
it's
a little
similar.
down.
I know it's similar, but like the thing is, like, I'm in the it's an unpopular opinion, but like I don't.
Yeah.
I feel Double Dash personally doesn't handle as well as Mario Kart 64 did, in my opinion. Like, I just don't.
Yeah, no,
It,
I
it,
feel like the
And the
actual
maps
racing.
weren't that great in Mario Kart Double Dash either.
Okay,
Okay,
but again,
but-
I think we need
but
to
the
shift from the battle mode thing of
but
this. So
the reason I'm choosing Diddy Kong is because you can't get Diddy Kong anywhere else on any other console. It's
can.
not like there's a Diddy Kong
DS.
for GameCube.
Yeah, Gino, it's not
well,
good.
you can get on DS, but yeah, the definitive one is on
Yeah,
is
there-
100% on. And the thing is, here's the thing. Here's the big thing with Mario Kart 64, and I think you misinterpreted when I said it was chaos. Because you misinterpreted it as like it was chaos and that's a good thing. I'm saying it's chaos because it handles poorly. The gameplay is not tight for a racer. And like in my opinion, if I'm telling somebody who's played Mario Kart 8 to go back and play Mario Kart 64 because it's just as
Yeah.
good, I would be lying to them. They would go back
It's
to that game and they would feel like it's an old game and they would feel like it's a relic. And that's
Yeah.
the thing is I can't in good faith recommend a modern gamer to play Mario Kart 64 because it doesn't offer anything in terms of experience that's different than Mario Kart 8, plus the gameplay is way choppier and way less innovative.
yeah, it's the same feeling as going from new Smash Bros to 64 Smash Bros.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
kind of choppiness.
That's my opinion on it. And I know you and Gino have a very
I have a
like,
strong
big-
attachment to both
strong-
games, and honestly,
Yeah.
it's like it's really hard because like the nostalgia for Mario Kart 64 is so strong. Just because like we had such a good time with it, and like I understand, like for instance, like the hover car and the plane gameplay of Diddy Kong Racing, albeit while really fun, wasn't the greatest. Like
Yeah.
really,
Yeah,
the driving is the only thing. Yes,
I
that's
mean,
better. But
agree.
the items are better in 64.
I mean, agree to disagree, I think is the thing. And like I said with the battle mode, like that's your experience with that. I'm not going to disagree that the planes and the hovercraft are bad. Like I think they're good, but I think the big point of the N64 Essentials is you can get a Mario Kart experience on another console. You can't get
Yeah,
a Diddy Kong experience on another console. If
Yeah.
if I'm telling you to go back and play games on N64, I'm going to tell you to go play Diddy Kong Racing because you've probably already
Yeah.
played Mario Kart.
And I understand that, and that's where I
Yeah,
think Matteo. I think we might have to like take our nostalgia glasses off and like
Yeah, like for
have this
me,
fun.
Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, they're my favorite games, right? But I'm taking it from the perspective of someone just bought an N64 for the first time, and they've been playing video games like the whole time. They've been playing like modern video games. And, like, which games would I recommend to this person that
But you also have to
they're
look
gonna
at it
have
in the
to
sense that
period?
But like a historic.
no, but Adriano, that's a
Yeah.
good thing. You're supposed to like look at if no one's ever played an N64 game, like you have to look at it if they're experienced. Also, you have to look at it if someone that isn't a gamer and isn't experienced. And
Yeah.
That's true.
that's an important thing. But like, yeah, I don't want to make it sound like I hate Diddy Kong Racing. I friggin' love
You love
Diddy Kong
Diddy Kong
Racing.
Racing. No, I know you're not.
But
I know what you're doing right now. You're not arguing Diddy Kong versus Mario Kart.
yeah, I'm
You're
arguing
arguing for
just
Diddy Kong
Mario
and
Kart.
Mario Kart. Yeah, you're
No, I'm
arguing. You want to
arguing.
keep.
Yeah,
You want
because like
them both to stay for right
yeah.
now. I know.
And like
that.
I've never played Snowboard Kids. Like that's the other thing. Like that's the big unknown that
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Snowboard Kids. Are
we're
we
not even
dropping that?
talking
or-
about Snowboard Kids because like I've never played it before. I physically can't
I've played
argue
it.
for or against that game at all.
I like
Same
Snowboard
here.
Kids,
I
but
know Adriano
I
really likes it.
I personally like Diddy Kong Racing better than Snowboard Kids, so I wouldn't put Snowboard Kids over Diddy Kong Racing. Personally, but that's my experience with it. I don't know what Adriano's experience is with it.
No, same way. Like I would recommend Diddy Kong Racing over Snowboard Kids to somebody.
Okay. Well, ultimately, we have to make the decision. I think we need to move on from this conversation. So, ultimately, we have to make the decision. Are we moving forward with Diddy Kong Racing and Mario Kart 64 both staying here, or are we just moving forward with we're probably only going to put one racer if we put a racer on the list, and this is the
Would
one
be
we're
Diddy
going
Kong
with.
Racing, yeah.
So
Diddy
you
Kong
think?
Racing.
So
Yeah.
then we're gonna
Ultimately, my decision is basically going to come down to this. Like, you can't play as Banjo in Mario Kart 64, unfortunately.
That is true.
So
This
You
is true.
cannot.
And you cannot play it in
Conquer.
modern.
Nor can you play as the best Kong.
No Wood Kong.
rip Mario
No,
Kart
Kong.
64.
And
Um,
Conquer too. You can play as Conquer before they made it into an M-rated game.
Yep.
Yeah, this is cutesy Conquer.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe we just put Diddy Kong Racing on the list, and then we can remove Donkey Kong, Banjo, and Conker games, and that can just represent all three. I'm
No.
joking. That's
Well-
true. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So anyway, the next like games. So the next like games that we can deliberate between, which I think will be the one that we don't need to have a huge bloodbath over, is Mario Party 3 versus Mario Party 2. Because realistically, we're not bringing them both to the finals. We gotta decide. So I think this one is very easy, and it can just go by vote.
Yeah.
I don't really think this one needs a huge argument unless anybody, because at the end of the day, Mario Party 2 and Mario Party 3 are both good, and they're both just as good as each other, and it's really subjective. So I think as a group we just need to figure out which one people prefer. So Adriano, which one would you want to push?
Oh
3
man,
or 2?
I haven't played both of them enough to know much, but I'm gonna say 2.
Gino, 3 or 2?
I'm also gonna say 2, even though I really like Waluigi in video games, and Mario Party 3 had Waluigi. Out of all the Mario Party games that we play, we always go back to 2.
I disagree. I think we play 3 quite a
I
bit.
think we play 3 much more, but me and Riley clearly are on the 3 train. So it really is Matteo's deliberating, and I know you nominated 2, but I don't know if you have a different opinion on which one
Well,
is going through.
Says 2.
I could toss a coin, honestly, on this, because 3 was my first Mario Party. And I
Also,
think
That was actually
everybody
like the
has
first
single
game
player
that
mode.
2 and 3 are like, oh, they're to me, like, it's almost the exact same experience, except the difference is the mini games. And
3 has a single player in the dual mode and Waluigi and Daisy.
yes, I know, but I'm thinking forward here right now. This
No,
decision goes.
no.
I know. I'm just
There's
trolling.
no bartering. No bartering.
You save your bartering for later.
No, there's no bartering. You can't
I think if I had to pick right now, even though Gino walked in front of the screen when I was doing the item mini game,
I was hoping you weren't
me up
gonna
that
bring this
game,
up.
I'll pick Mario Party 3, just because I like having my Mount Rushmore wall of my characters on the maps, the menu
Good
screen
choice.
there.
Good choice.
Good choice.
So now
Okay. Mario Party 3. So now we have, let's see,
we have a 3D platformer problem
1, 2,
right now.
3,
yeah, we
4,
do.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, don't worry, we're gonna get to 3D platform problem eventually, but we have more conversation to have before we get there.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
but-
right now we could shave one
Well,
3D
we can have.
platformer off.
That's the thing is. So the first conversation we have to have before we can have the platformer conversation is we have to have the conversation of the Banjo games, Banjo Kazooie or Banjo Tooie, or do we actually feel comfortable bringing them both forward? Which, as much as I love Banjo Tooie, I don't think there should be 2 Banjo games on this Essentials list.
I don't either.
So I think we need to weigh Banjo Kazooie versus Tooie now. I'm gonna assume.
Wait, can we? I don't. Just please before this. I'm gonna have like an aneurysm at some point here.
No,
but just
listen.
for the sake of my sanity, can we please take Donkey Kong 64 off?
I think let's talk about that in a sec. Okay.
Did we already take off Conkers? I kind of
Yes.
out a little
We'll
bit.
talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
yes. We'll talk about Donkey Kong 64 in a sec. Okay. We got to talk about Banjo first. Now, obviously, like Adriano's already said, he hasn't played Tooie.
Yeah.
So his favor will likely be with Kazooie, and I know Matteo and Gino's favor is both with
If
Kazooie.
everybody's saying that the sequel is like took what is in the first and just rounded it and made it better and everything, then I'm all for it. I would vote for 2.
No, it's not.
Well,
That's not. It's not
Adriano,
true in the
that's not-
slightest,
that's
Adriano.
The thing is, we're at an impasse here, Adriano, because Riley and I both have. We both prefer Banjo Tooie over Kazooie, and Matteo and Gino both prefer Kazooie over Tooie, which is something that has been established over a long time. Now, Riley, I'm going to say to you, I think that just because I don't want to sit here and argue it, I think
Let them have
we
it.
should. Let's just. I like Banjo-Kazooie. You know what? I like Banjo-Kazooie, and Matteo is he is the biggest Banjo-Kazooie fan I've ever met. And if you, Riley, if we were doing a Halo list and you said Halo 2 is the top one because that's the one you liked, I would back you because you're the biggest Halo fan. So I think we should just give it to. We're at a tie,
But this is the thing, though,
ultimately,
Jules. I don't like this. This is the thing. And be honest. If you were to recommend someone who has never touched a video game in their life, here, play this relatively straightforward potential 10 to 15 hour game, or play this labyrinth of a 40-hour game that requires backtracking and has
Now, I
grunty
don't
industries in it.
I think you're being very
That requires knowledge of the previous game.
So I think
That's the thing.
Okay, listen. You're being very.
If we're suggesting games to someone who's never played it before, I don't think we should suggest a sequel. I think the first in line in the story
I also
would.
thought this
Well,
isn't
I
necessarily
don't-
things that people like.
Yeah,
they've never
so-
played games.
I don't necessarily think that's always the case that you shouldn't tell them to play. Like, I think it depends on the game. But that being said, Matteo, I feel you're a bit hostile when I was trying to make a generous point to you. But
I know where this is. I know where this is coming from. That's the thing.
I
I know you
agree.
guys.
No, this has nothing to
You
do
know
with.
what this is going
This has
to.
nothing. This has
You not
nothing.
trick me.
This
You not
has-
trick me.
This has. I promise you, this has nothing. In my opinion, this has nothing to do with barter. The reason I was saying give it to you is because, like I said, you are the bigger, like very clearly the bigger Banjo fan, the bigger Banjo authority in our group of friends, and I don't see a reason. Like, I think Banjo-Tooie and Kazooie are so close in experience and in terms of in terms of quality that really you could say either of them. But I do think what you just said is ultimately the kicker for why maybe Kazooie deserves to be on the essentials list, because if this is going to be somebody who's playing the game for the first time, Kazooie probably is the better experience to have as your first Banjo game. Because I think you'll appreciate Kazooie more if you play it before Tooie. If I tell somebody to play Tooie first, then going back to Kazooie is harder.
Right. Yeah, that's my argument too.
Who would say my name?
Yep.
So, Riley, how do you feel about that?
Here I am coming to this N64 Essentials with an essay written about why Banjo-Kazooie is better than
That's the
Banjo-Tooie.
thing.
And you
I
don't
can't
even
whip it out.
use
You
I
don't
can't even
need
whip
to.
it out.
You
I'm
don't
just
need
kidding.
to, because I think ultimately when I think in my head is we can have a 3-hour podcast of us arguing Banjo-Tooie or Kazooie, but ultimately I don't think Riley and I care enough to defend Banjo-Tooie to the point where it's inevitably going to lose anyway. Like, ultimately, realistically, I think that there's arguments on both sides. You can put either in. You shouldn't put both in. And I think, like, I personally respect your authority as a Banjo-Kazooie fan in saying that
thank you.
Banjo-Kazooie is the one to play as the essential. Okay?
Fine, I will take it. And listeners, if you've never played Banjo-Kazooie, do yourself a favor and play it.
You should do both, honestly. But
It's on
You
Game
should
Pass.
play both.
Yeah,
On
you should play
Xbox Game
both.
Pass, on xCloud.
And for the record, once again, I like Banjo-Tooie. But
Now we have 3 platformers on the list. I don't think we're going to put 3 platformers on the list, maybe 2. So I'd say we at least shave off 1. So we have Mario 64, we have Banjo-Kazooie, and we have Donkey Kong 64. Now, how do people feel about removing one of those?
Yes.
I think we could remove both of the extra ones at this point. And I'm saying that purely based on how Matteo described Banjo-Kazooie earlier. As much as I am a Mario 64 purist and I love that game.
Oh, too early.
No,
Why do you know?
D64 is coming off this list, Matteo.
Yeah.
I don't need to give a
Yes.
reason for that.
But
I need to give a
here's the
reason
thing.
for taking off Mario 64.
But here's the thing. But why?
I think
but-
DK64 is better than Mario.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I feel like it's unfair that you're saying, well, DK64 is coming off the list, because Riley really likes DK64. I really like DK64.
No, I do too. It's just
But
that
I agree
like
with Gino.
Rare
But I
did it
agree with
better.
Gino. Maybe it is better to just remove Donkey Kong 64 and Super Mario 64.
Well, this is where I was coming at, because I'm using my foreshadowing abilities to know that something's going to happen at the end of this
The
list
true
that we're not
battle's
going to
yet to
agree
come.
on, and I know how Jules feels about Mario
There are
64.
no bargaining chips.
This is the thing. There's a likelihood that only one 3D platformer makes on this list, even though the N64 was the system that created or at least pushed the genre to where it's at now. And it pains me to come to that conclusion in my head, but like I could see a reality where there's literally only one 3D platformer on this list, just because we feel strongly about something else that's going to happen. So it's
Okay, so what we're saying is, and Adriano, what are your opinions on this?
So this is like Donkey Kong versus Banjo-Kazooie.
No, it's
So
Donkey
Donkey
Kong
Kong
Mario
versus
64.
Banjo-Kazooie versus Mario 64. What is being proposed?
Ooh.
What's being proposed is that we remove
Okay.
both Donkey Kong 64 and Super Mario 64 because we might only push one platformer into the list.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm all for Banjo-Kazooie. Yep. Because I haven't played Donkey Kong 64, and Super Mario 64 has been recently ported to All Stars, and
Yep.
and a PC port.
Yeah,
If you play the unofficial release.
and might I add, while I know this is a hot take and an unpopular opinion, not only has Super Mario 64 been ported, it has also, in my opinion, been bested in quite a significant way. And while I think that it is a great game, I do think that, in my opinion, having played it recently on the 3D All Stars, going back to that game, damn, that game aged.
It definitely aged after Odyssey.
And this is the
Yeah.
thing. I think that's the piece of the puzzle that that shifted in my mind the most. Like I love Mario 64 and I'll always love that game. That is the N64 game in my mind
Yes.
still. But it was rough to an extent. Like, and I don't know if that was because of I need to play that game on an N64 controller because that controller was made for Mario 64. But maybe that was the reason I didn't enjoy it as much on 3D All Stars. And I really don't want that opinion to like push me to make a decision now about Mario 64. But I don't know, like, and I know the way how you and Gino feel about it now. Like that's the thing. Like,
And the thing is, like, and just like you said, like, the thing is, Mario 64, when I've gone back and replayed it, it has felt like it's aged. But I can't say the same about that for Banjo-Kazooie.
no, Banjo-Kazooie is
When I
not
go
aged
back and play
today,
Banjo-Kazooie, it
especially
doesn't feel
if you
like it's
play on a
aged.
360. Like,
So
It's-
that's where I'm at, and I do think we can remove Donkey Kong 64 and Super Mario 64. So
the thing is with me, like Banjo-Kazooie is that's my go-to. Like that's my Banjo-Kazooie is like my like stuck on a desert island like game.
yeah,
That's one
we
of those
know.
for me. And
But
like I
I
can't.
think we're at. Don't worry, we're not asking you to drop Banjo-Kazooie.
No,
We're asking
I
you.
know that. I'm like obviously Mario 64 will not be anywhere near that to me. So like that's the thing. Like I for sure would not put Donkey Kong 64 forward. It's now whether question like would I put Mario 64 forward also?
What? It
And
sounds
I
like
think
four of us are comfortable
yeah,
dropping it. So
yeah,
how do
yeah.
you
I
feel?
think I'm looking at the other games on this list and just don't see how,
Okay.
given how things have transpired in the last little while, like I just don't see a way Mario 64 could be on the list. As
Okay.
much as it pains
So
me to say that.
Yeah.
now
I've accepted that already.
we have 7 games on the list, so we're almost there. So just to remind everybody the games we have, there is one more conversation we have to have, but the thing is, this conversation can go very differently depending on how we feel. So right now we have Diddy Kong Racing, we have Banjo-Kazooie, we have Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. So I think the conversation we have to have here is, if we're going to put both Zelda games, do we put 2 Zelda games into this Essentials list? And if we do, which 2 games do we sacrifice as a result? Or are we going to make this, are we going to, for list diversity, pick 1 Zelda game, or even hotter take, neither Zelda game deserves to be on this list?
No, we say that this is good. We advertise this as a bloodbath. It's one of the Zelda games. We advertise this as a bloodbath. We got to live up to the
One
hype.
Zelda game only. Gino
One
has
Zelda game
made,
only.
Yep. Gino,
it's-
Master of Blood, has said it. We must have the bloodbath.
Okay, well, I think because Banjo-Tooie didn't make the cut because it's best to not have a sequel first rather than the first game. Maybe Ocarina of Time should be the first one.
So here's my argument. Here's my argument, though, Adriano. So here's my argument with that. Is I understood Banjo-Tooie needing Banjo-Kazooie because Banjo-Tooie fundamentally builds off of Banjo-Kazooie's gameplay style in the
so
sense
did
that...
Majora's Mask off of Ocarina of Time.
But no, but you haven't played Banjo-Tooie, so it's like it's a different experience. So like almost think of Banjo-Tooie as almost like Banjo-Tooie when you go into it almost requires you to have, like, they don't reteach you any of the fundamental aspects of the game. They expect you to know all of the moves already, and like they have a very small like optional tutorial if you want to learn it. And then like in terms of narrative, completely builds off of it. Like in terms of gameplay elements, completely builds on what happened in the previous game. Whereas I do feel like Majora's Mask is a little different because while obviously they enhance things and some things are a little better and more refined, I don't feel like the game requires you to have played like the only thing about Ocarina of Time you really need to know is that he has the Ocarina of Time, and they kind of tell you that at the beginning of the game. Like anything necessary to the plot of that game is told to you in that game, and it can be played as a standalone. Of course, having the previous game enhances that experience, but from a gameplay perspective, it doesn't require you to have played Ocarina of Time.
It doesn't require you to, but I wouldn't recommend playing the sequel before the first one.
But here's the other thing. Here's the other thing to consider. So Zelda as a series is a very vast series full of different games. And that's the thing is like Zelda, I feel like even though Majora's Mask is a sequel to the Hero of Time story, like plot wise, again, it doesn't rely on anything that really happens in Ocarina of Time. And each Zelda game, Aonuma and Nintendo have purposely like created each Zelda game to be able to be played as if it's your first Zelda game. Like that's why the timeline's all over the place and there's all these different experiences. Now, my big thing with Majora's Mask is, and this is coming from somebody who has been an Ocarina of Time fan my whole life.
Mhm.
Majora's Mask is the single most unique experience in the Zelda franchise. And you can get an Ocarina of Time like experience from other games in the series. You can only get a Majora's Mask like experience from Majora's Mask.
I don't agree.
Where's the lie?
All of the dungeons in Majora's Mask are awful, except
That's
for
not
Stone
true,
Tower.
though.
The
They're
bosses
not awful.
all suck. The
Or
final boss
I
is
think
incredibly
I
easy
think
to
they
defeat.
suck, and you'll get lost, and
Even
you'll have trouble with them if
easier
you're dumb.
when you go in and do everything and get the ultimate mask in the game. It's a pushover. It doesn't respect the player.
Or
The
You're
difficulty
saying that,
curve
like,
is
okay, what
there's
about
no
using the
difficulty
big
curve.
Goron sword in Ocarina of Time? That
You had
trivialized
to at
the
least
last
work for the
Yeah, and you have to work to get the Fierce Deity mask.
yeah, you have to work way harder to get Fierce Deity than you do.
Yeah,
to
I
get
know,
the
but
Goron
Ganon
sword.
isn't. You don't sneeze and Ganon blows over. You don't have
You
an
kinda
item that
do.
literally
You
gives
can
you
beat
infinite
Ganon in, like,
magic
a
to
minute.
spam your sword beams out. I'm sorry,
Okay,
Majora's Mask
but
is not a complete experience. And if you're talking about like a pure Zelda experience from
Also,
from like okay, narrative and side quests and all that stuff are great and all, But if the game only has 4 dungeons, one of them is memorable at best. The giant fish boss is a pushover. The swamp dungeon, you just burn them with fire arrows. The goat boss is awful. And
Okay,
if
but
you don't have enough magic resources and stuff, Twin Mold's a pain in the ass.
here's
Like,
my
fundamentally, as a Zelda game, it fails.
okay. First, there's a couple things I want to pick apart. It's unfair to say, oh, it doesn't follow the same pardon my friend, doesn't seem to follow the same pattern every other Zelda boss has, where it's you have to figure out what item or sorry, you don't have to figure out anything. It's always the item in the dungeon that you like. The item you got from the dungeon that you're currently doing, you have to use on the boss. You do that 3 times. Oh, sorry, Majora's doesn't do that, so it automatically fails the Zelda game, right?
I'd like to point out though that wasn't a series pattern. Really, I wouldn't even call that a series pattern when Majora's Mask came out, because
Okay, but it definitely was going forward. They took what Ocarina did and then continued to do that, and it's not an interesting boss. It's not a fun way to fight bosses.
And the other thing too, I was gonna say, Gino, is one. Don't you ever dare say that fish boss is a pushover. I died 4 times on that fish boss on my most recent playthrough. It is not a pushover.
Also,
Second of all,
I said the final boss was a pushover.
Okay, you do that by picking. You don't have to
sneeze and Majora will fall over and die.
Guys,
Okay, but that's like saying it's like Twilight Princess's boss fight is terrible because you use fishing rod. It's completely broken.
Okay, there's too much talking. We need to take each point. No. We need to take each point and actually break it down rather than just throwing everything. Okay, so
let's put it
first. Can I rebut this?
We can't vote on this one. This is the bloodbath we promised.
No.
I have something to say also. After though, like,
can we just focus though on each of these points that's already been brought up, because we keep adding all these layers and we haven't even explored the ones that have been brought up. Okay.
Yeah.
So first off, the first thing we need to talk about that was said is we're talking about dungeons, and we're talking about number, and we're talking about Gino's saying that they're bad, quality, blah blah. So Riley,
find a bad dungeon, please.
Riley has said that he likes the fact that the dungeons aren't totally focused on every puzzle just around a dungeon item, which is fair. It's a different, unique experience. My opinion on the dungeons, having recently played it, is that there's 4 of them, but I don't think there's less content in the game because there's only 4. And 2, I don't think they're bad. I think that every dungeon in Majora's Mask tries to be innovative, and some of the execution fails, but some of it works. But in general, I admire it for trying to be innovative, whereas, no offense to Ocarina of Time, but every single dungeon was pretty plain. Like, there was in Ocarina of Time, everything was like nothing. The highs in Majora's Mask, in my opinion, are much higher than the highs in Ocarina of Time in terms of dungeon design. But the lows are also much lower too. It's more sporadic. In my opinion, the only real revolutionary, awesome, innovative concept dungeon in Ocarina of Time were the Forest Temple and the Spirit Temple. Everything else was pretty plain. That's my opinion. Whereas I feel like at least Majora's tried to be innovative with every dungeon. Some of it worked, like Stone Tower. Some of it didn't work, like Great Bay.
Okay, but I think Great Bay gets a bad rap. Like,
it does, but
the reason people don't seem to like Majora's Mask dungeons is because it's not most of the puzzles have nothing to do with the item you get. It's almost all environmental. And a good video I watched on this by a YouTuber called Game Maker's Toolkit kind of explains it more succinctly than I can. But the idea is that Majora's, much more so than Ocarina, rewards thoughtful, actually thinking about the dungeon you're in and the environment and how it all works pieces together. It's like how the water temple isn't actually bad when you think about it. It's just you get lost because you're not thinking, because you expect your map to do everything for you. If you think about how, Great Bay is very easy to solve once you figure out that you just have to change the currents to get to specific rooms.
I agree, and I had that experience replaying it recently. Is once I slowed down and was like, okay, I'm going to slow down and actually try to look for everything in this room before leaving. It made the dungeons a lot more enjoyable. The problem with Majora's Mask is if you try to rush through the dungeons, because Ocarina of Time, you don't really need to explore the rooms that much. You just need to find like the one thing and leave. Majora's Mask, the problem is the dungeons get annoying if you don't explore and find everything, because if you leave, sometimes it's a big deal to get back to that same room. But if you actually do take it from the lens of like, I'm going to explore this area, in a way, it's almost like a precursor to Breath of the Wild in that way. Like, you won't appreciate Breath of the Wild unless you actually choose to explore. And that's what Majora's Mask was trying to do. It's just almost like people weren't ready for that back then, and they weren't ready to explore, and they weren't ready to experience that. So
Yeah,
that's
but
my
the
argument.
problem with Majora's Mask, though, and the problem with that statement is that they want you to take your time, but you can't take your time in that game because you have a
They-
timer.
If you
You
use the
can.
backwards song of or the inverted time,
I
whatever
understand
stuff,
that, but like the reason why I can't get into Majora's Mask, and I didn't bring this up in the Zelda topic for whatever reason, I don't know why, but like, and it's the most important reason why I don't like Majora's Mask is that it's the same reason I don't like I can't get into Pikmin is that like if you put a time, I play video games to have a good time and to relax and play at my own pace. But if the game is forcing me to do something and forcing me to play it a specific way, I'm sorry, I can't get into that. And I don't think someone who's ever played a game, has never played a game before, should be put into the same. Should be playing a game that has features like that in it. Like,
okay,
Yeah.
wait, again, is this directed towards people who've never played a game in their lives or people who've never played N64? Because that's
but it's all relevant, Riley.
It's just all relevant. It's just if you were going to recommend people to go back and play 5 games on the N64,
And this is only if
which
I'm
5
comparing
would you
it to
say?
Ocarina of Time, because like I'm like of the belief or like we'll never be able to convince each other to like flip flop or whatever, but like and recommend it because like these are both. I guess you could say Majora's Mask is a good game. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But like the thing is, I just don't like and like the other thing is like I personally like I was staying quiet the entire time you guys were dissecting Zelda Majora's Mask 3DS because all those things they put in Majora's Mask 3DS were meant for players like me that need those types of things to be engaged with that game. I think the way they did the Bomber's Notebook in 3DS is better for someone like me. Having all the save points is better for someone like me that like I know it's not meant for like the core audience, but like for me as someone who doesn't just needs that hand holding to get through Majora's Mask, like all that stuff is more valuable to me than it would be for anyone else. Like that's where I didn't want to intervene back then, but like I thought it would be fair to say that now because like I'm someone who has never played Majora's Mask from beginning to end. I can't. I physically can't do it. And and if I'm going to play a Zelda game, I'm going to play a Zelda game that will be engaging for me for beginning to end, and that's Ocarina of Time. Like if I have to compare the two, but like once again, I think we could be completely wasting our time and our breath right now on this because they're like
Well,
both.
no, there's
like
nothing wrong with waste. Like, we don't have to waste time. There's a discussion.
I know, but like
Oh.
it could all be for naught. Like it's
But
I don't know.
what's for
That's
not? That's the point of
like
discussion, is
I
to
know,
just
but
talk about it.
even if you
Well,
don't change anyone's mind, you can still give them a new lens to think, like a new
Yeah,
perspective to think about.
ultimately, what we determine to put on this list isn't what's important. What's important is the discussion we're having, because regardless of what we end up choosing, our listeners right now are listening to why we are pushing for each game, and that's going to be more meaningful to what influences them than what we actually deliberate at the end. So I wouldn't
and like
call this for naught. Like,
and
this isn't
like
like a barter. This isn't like
and yeah, and I know this is gonna come across the wrong way, but like to me, the main meat of every Zelda game should be the adventure, and the main way, like, and that's why I can't. Like, I love Breath of the Wild, and I think Breath of the Wild is, like I said, it's gonna take the Zelda series into a new direction, and it's gonna be different. And I hope Nintendo remembers the past of the Zelda series while they go out that way. But like the exploration is at its best when it's in the dungeons, and I cannot accept the fact that that game only has 4. and I'm
has
someone who
3 mini
I
dungeons.
I know, but like I the thing is,
But Matteo, you like Wind Waker, and Wind Waker only has 5.
I know, but that's for me. Like, at least you have like the Great Sea and like the mini islands. But like the thing is with Wind Waker, the overworld isn't very big. Clocktown is amazing. Like Clocktown is probably one of the best towns in Zelda. But like the thing is that I still can't. Like I'm not a side quest guy. Like and it's the type of thing where like if half the content in the game is in side quests and I only do half of that half, like I'm missing out on so much of the game.
But
Like
that's why I think that we have to get away from this idea of Majora's Mask is mostly side quests, and I think we have to stop using the word side quest when talking about Majora's Mask, because
It almost sounds
like I said,
derogatory.
yeah, because in a way, like, and this is the thing is, I'm just gonna keep paralleling when we're talking about Majora's Mask with other games. So, for example, when you were saying, Matteo, well, it doesn't work for you. You don't like the time mechanic and stuff.
Well, what
So
if you screw up on something in the middle of, like, for instance, you're doing the
no,
Anju Cafe stuff, right? You're at the very last section of the Anju Cafe stuff in Icana, and you screw up. You have to do
Then you
all of
redo it.
I
that all
know,
over
but
again.
Gino,
It's
that's
a
not what
That's
I'm
pain in the
getting
happened to
ass.
me.
to. That's not
That's
what I
happened
was
It's
to
a
me.
getting
pain in
to.
the ass.
I get it,
Yeah.
Gino, and I understand, and
I
I'm not saying
Look,
that
I
you're.
agree with Matteo and Gino about the time aspect too. Like that's what makes it unique. But as a huge Zelda fan, like that game does give me a little bit more stress and anxiety than any other Zelda game. And
And to some
yes,
people,
you're
that's a
right that there's a
positive.
lot of exploration, but I feel like it gets lost because of that time aspect. Like I can't just take my time exploring and enjoying my surroundings. I feel like, pressed for time always.
But
But
I
And
I
think
I,
think
that
and to finish off, I don't think I would recommend that to someone as their first Zelda experience on the N64. I would
that's
definitely
fair,
recommend them to play it, but I wouldn't recommend that over Ocarina of Time first. You know.
and that's fair, and I think what I was trying to say before, um, we kind of got back into this time thing. My point was going to be that I understand that there's anxiety and that okay, the time mechanic doesn't work for some people, but that's like this. It's to me, it sounds like the same tired arguments. That's the same as like people saying, "Well, I don't like Skyward Sword because motion controls," and it's like, well, then you're not getting the point of the game. And it's the same thing with Breath of the Wild, where people are like, well, breakable item mechanics, and I don't want to explore and climb things, blah blah. I want Zelda, like I want Zelda mechanics. And to me, it's like I understand the criticism of it, and I'm not saying that you're not valid in what you're saying, but I
Mhm.
also think it's missing the point of the design of the game. Like the point of the game is to give you anxiety. Like you are supposed to feel
Yeah,
anxious because they're trying to make you like that's how they immerse you into the game world. Like that is that game world.
yeah,
Everybody's under anxiety. Link's under
I-
anxiety. Like
yeah. But I'm
right?
not
Like
saying I wouldn't recommend it, but I wouldn't recommend it over Ocarina of Time.
yeah. I do
But
think another thing to
honestly,
consider though, just the other thing I want to touch that Gino said before is when he was saying the fierce deity mask and he was very passionate about how that makes the final
yeah,
boss a
I'm
joke.
very passionate
And
Well,
about
the final
Majora's
boss
Mask.
is a
and
joke without the Fierce Deity Mask.
No, it's not.
Without
no,
Fierce
it's
Deity.
not.
it's really hard
No, it is
without
not.
it. It's
It
really
is
hard
not,
without it.
Gino. It's actually really
It,
hard without it.
I was able to defeat Majora quite handily without it.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
so
you're a
was I,
seasoned
but that
Zelda
doesn't.
game.
Yeah,
But yeah, like for Zelda standards, it's a tough boss. If you're comparing to Dark Souls, sure, like you're not going to get your ass handed to you. But guess what? Ganondorf, the final boss of Twilight Princess, is an absolute joke who does like half a heart damage to you. So I don't
and
think
you can
that's a
completely trivialize that fight with a fishing rod.
yeah. So like I think that's not something to hold against Majora. But in terms of your fierce deity argument, which is I do all this stuff and my reward is what that the final boss is a joke. Breath of the Wild, same thing. What's your reward for actually doing the story? They destroy the final boss. Like the final boss gets half its health handed to it, and you have a bunch of gear that just makes and like these runes that makes the final boss a joke. And so it's the same thing. And that's where I'm trying to find these parallels with all the things that are being praised in later Zelda games are things that Majora's Mask did first. and it's just it feels like people just aren't recognizing that Majora's Mask created exploration in Zelda, like to a
Well,
degree,
I
like Breath
think
of the
I
Wild.
think Legend of Zelda
No.
created Legend of Zelda.
No,
or,
but I
sorry,
mean, like,
Legend of
no,
Zelda.
but what I mean is like it created that sense of like exploring every nook and cranny that Breath of the Wild brought into the series, like not just
I felt
regular
like
exploration.
I felt like you couldn't explore every nook and cranny because you were scared for time. There's
But
lots of stuff that you
but
can skip
the thing
over. in
is-
Adriano
Majora's
has put
Mask.
hours and hours and hours into both of those games.
Yeah,
Yes, and but I feel like that's because the exploration isn't just about exploring the world, it's about exploring the timeline, right? Like that's the purpose of it. It's not just, hey, I want to look at this room. It's like I want to look at this room as it change, or this area of Clocktown as it changes throughout the 3 day period. Like that's part of the exploration. Is
Yeah,
it's
I know,
not
but
just
if you miss a specific event at the very beginning of the timeline, you have to go back in time and do it
yeah,
all over
but
again.
exactly, you get to go
Yeah,
back in
and-
time. That's a core part of the game. It's not like you missed it, you can never do it again. It's not even like the
and
days are that
if I
long.
missed a
Yeah, but
and
like
if I missed a shrine in an area of Breath of the Wild,
if you want to have something happen at a very, like, for instance, you want to see this one specific thing. Okay, there's only so, okay, you can Song of Double Time to like speed up 2.5 days to get to this one very important thing. But what about all, like, for instance, I'm gonna go back to Anjuin Cafe, the biggest and best side quest in that game.
Yeah.
If you
Uh,
mess one thing up, that's like half hour gone.
yeah. You know,
Yeah.
we do got to keep in mind that we're picking the 5 essential games, and it's
Right?
for
Someone might
the
get
people
frustrated
who
at
have never.
that.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see people rage quitting Majora's Mask if they've never played a 3D Zelda game before. I would definitely recommend people to play Ocarina of Time first before
You have
Majora's
to be a
Mask.
fan of the series to play that already. Like, you have to be
disagree.
a fan of the
Majora's is
series
my
to
first
appreciate
game.
yeah,
that
I
game.
disagree with you. I disagree with you on that
How are we
one.
gonna pick it then? How are we gonna pick?
I mean, I'm
This
just
is
trying
the-
to say. I'm just trying to say the argument that I don't think Ocarina of Time needs to be played first, and
But the
for
argument of,
me-
yeah, it's art also can't be used here.
We didn't use
Why?
it once.
we didn't use it once. Yeah, and why wouldn't it be able to be used?
It's
It's just I don't know.
You just don't
you
understand
just
it.
keep
It's
it in
not meant
mind
to be that way.
if
It's
it's
meant to
for
do, like,
What do you mean we just don't understand it?
that's the pretty much whenever I hear people arguing Majora over whatever, it's always some kind of like, oh, you just don't understand the nuances, or you're talking.
But that's not what
yeah,
we're arguing. You're using
Yeah,
other
yeah.
people's arguments in this conversation,
yeah,
and I think we need to focus on our own arguments. And
yeah.
I think ultimately, Riley obviously it's his favorite Zelda game, and he's expressed why. I genuinely don't think either Majora's Mask or Ocarina of Time are better than each other. The only reason I think Majora's Mask should be on this list is because, again, I think you can get the Ocarina of Time experience from other Zelda games. I understand that it's the first one. I understand that like there's a lot of firsts. And I understand that Ocarina of Time is a really good game, but you can only get a Majora's Mask experience on the N64. You can get the story of Hyrule and the Triforce and the conflict between Ganon and Zelda and Link through tons of other games in the series. You can get that dungeon item is the focal point of all the puzzles in tons of other games in the series. The only one that you can get this experience that's about exploring a 3-day timeline that uses gameplay that mixes different playable characters, because yeah, sure, you're playing as Link, but they're ultimately different playable characters. You get to play as a Goron for the first time, a Zora for the first time, a Deku for the first time. You get this wacky world that's full of all these colorful fleshed out characters. I think that's something that in gaming should be experienced, because like I think that is that is a unique experience. I think telling people to play Majora's Mask is important because it's unique, and not everybody's gonna like it, but
And
I don't think
also,
that's necessarily a bad thing.
I think you're overselling the difficulty. It's not like, again, it's not like you're going from playing something like it's not like going from Pokemon Snap to Bloodborne there.
Yeah,
Maybe we should put both of them on then. If we really can't decide.
I'm
No,
honestly leaning towards putting both on. And it's not for
Yeah.
a fact that like it's because we can't decide. It's just like like the experiences of those games are different enough where like it's not like putting Super Mario World or Super Mario Bros and Super Mario Bros 3 on the same list.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing.
I
So-
think you can't have one without the other, so maybe we should do both.
Hey,
Okay,
so
then let's operate under the assumption that both are going to stay.
Yeah.
for now,
Or consider
I,
them as one game.
last time we did a tally, what do we still have left?
There's 7
We
games
have-
left.
Did you knock out Star Fox while I was?
No, Star Fox
no.
is still here.
Okay.
We have Diddy Kong Racing. We have Banjo Kazooie. We have Mario Party 3. We have Paper Mario. We have Ocarina of Time. We have Star Fox 64, and we have Majora's Mask.
Why don't we try to push games forward onto the list now? Like, because like, we have 7 games, right? Like, I'm willing to say, like, I think any like that's why like it was. I said I could toss a coin between a Mario Party game because I think Mario Party is an integral experience, like to the it's
Yeah.
On
integral to the
N64.
N64 experience.
I agree. I think Mario. Yeah, I agree, and I think Mario Party has to be on the list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's me. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I agree with that too.
I
Well,
completely
no,
agree.
yeah,
Like I think it'd be insane because like that is the like those are the multiplayer games that define the system
Yeah.
to this day. Like those games are still like
They're still good.
we play them all the time. Like I I couldn't recommend them enough.
So,
So-
what are we thinking?
And the other thing for me also is like the other thing I would define the N64 to me is 3D platforms, 3D platformers.
Oh, wait, hold
And-
on. So Mario Party 3 is going on? Is everybody
Yeah.
in agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, Adriano, yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Mario Party 3 is secured.
I think that honestly, like, I really think it's because I know I'm a big Banjo Kazooie fan, but try to look past that for a second. Like, if Mario 64 isn't on this list, then Banjo Kazooie has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
What
I
about
also
So-
think,
DK64?
but I also think, well, DK64 is already gone. We agreed to take DK64 and Mario 64 off.
I only remember the Mario 64 part. My apologies.
No, you agreed to it.
Okay.
Yeah. But I agree, but also like for the sense that Banjo-Kazooie is also an experience you can really only like I know it's been re-released on Xbox, but you're still playing an N64 game. Like
Yes.
Banjo-Kazooie is a game that really, at the end of the day, Banjo got into Smash. And why did he get into Smash? Because he had such an influence during the N64 era. He's still like I think that if you're going to go back and play a game on N64, like that's where you're going to be able to play a Banjo game. So I agree, Banjo-Kazooie should probably be on it.
Sure.
So then, if we're gonna continue to progress the conversation under the assumption that both Zelda games are on the list, then we have to decide one of Diddy Kong Racing, Paper Mario, or Star Fox 64.
Given those 3,
I'm
I-
sorry. I'd have to I'd vote to put Paper Mario out personally.
yeah, Paper Mario's gone. Off of like given the choice between those ones, but I'd also say Star Fox is gone. Like of those 3, Diddy
Yeah,
Kong Racing,
well,
I had the
let's
most fun
start
with those
with-
3.
But this
Let's
is
start
this is
with
the thing
Paper
with
It doesn't
Paper
matter
Mario.
about you specifically having the most fun with that. That's like it's
But this is the thing with Paper Mario that I really wanted to get into is like, so we talked about how, like I talked about how I wouldn't recommend Majora's Mask to someone who hasn't played games before. But someone who has played games before, particularly someone who likes RPGs, if they want to play literally one of the only RPGs on N64, the only option is Paper Mario, really. And that is an amazing option because that is a phenomenal game. The writing in Paper Mario 64 is amazing.
yeah, but to someone who's a fan of JRPGs, they'd find that to be I don't
Here's-
know, Jules, you might have more insight into this, but it's very dumbed
I-
down relative to other
It
JRPGs.
is very dumbed down. Actually, within the JRPG community, people look down upon things like Paper
Really?
Mario and Pokemon because they're very casual. I'm like they're seen as fun, but they're very bare bones. Like I wouldn't count it as an RPG experience. It's more of like a puzzle like adventure experience in terms of if you're talking to a JRPG player. But that being said, this is the other thing. that
I would
I'm.
accept a JRPG, but it's definitely an RPG.
Yeah.
No, it is an RPG, but I'm saying if you're talking to like an RPG fan and you're saying, "Hey, go play Paper Mario. It's an essential RPG." Like, really, like most people, like I play like every RPG. Paper Mario to RPG fans is not considered really an RPG. It's more of like a puzzle game or an adventure game with RPG elements. Like it's not really intuitive in terms of its RPG. Like it's baby's first RPG, but it's done
Pretty
really
much.
well. It's done really well and it's really fun. I love Paper Mario, but my argument against Paper Mario, I nominated it. I love Paper Mario. It's one of my favorite games. My argument again, that will always be my argument against Paper Mario is it did get one-upped in a very significant way. And ultimately like, N64 isn't the only place you can play a Paper Mario game like that, and it's not even the only place you can play the best Paper Mario game like that. Whereas N64 is the only place you can really play a game like Diddy Kong Racing, and it's the only place you can play a Star Fox game like Star Fox 64, because almost everything after it was different or a failed attempt to replicate Star Fox 64. Like when we talk about like going back to the glory days of Paper Mario, we talk about Paper Mario and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. When people talk about the glory days of Star Fox, they're basically just saying Star Fox 64.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Paper Mario probably can be let go.
But
All
But
right.
that's my opinion. I I I don't know where I know Riley agrees and it sounds like Gino and Matteo do. Adriano,
The thing is, though,
want to weigh in?
the big problem is we have 2 Zelda games here again, and this brings us back to that because now we
Yeah,
have
we
6.
will. But let's focus on the
Well,
task at hand, which is Paper
yeah.
Mario. So
Yeah.
let's not get ahead of ourselves. Paper Mario. Adriano, do you have any more opinions on Paper Mario?
Well, there's other Paper Mario games.
So we are in agreement.
Okay. See you, Paper Mario.
Why'd you use that
Um,
argument that there's other Paper Mario games? Because of course there are other Zelda games that are much
Yeah.
like Ocarina.
yeah. I mean, there's a very, I think there's a big difference though.
Yeah.
There is a difference. There's definitely a difference. Like I wouldn't even like though Twilight and Wind Waker are like similar to Ocarina, I would not say that they're on the same level similar as like Thousand Year Door is to the first Paper Mario.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I haven't
And as
played
much
much
as
of
I
Paper
like
Mario,
Twilight
so.
and Wind Waker, I wouldn't
Oh.
say I like them nearly as much as Ocarina because I still feel Ocarina did like I don't know, like there is something about it that like I like it a lot better. And maybe it's because I spent so much time in Ocarina, right? Like
Yeah, and I literally just replayed Ocarina and Majora's, and
like it's
when
not
I
an easy task.
it's not. I can tell you though that it wasn't until the end of Ocarina, like the back half of Ocarina, that I was like remembering why I liked the game so much. Whereas Majora's from the very beginning, I was like, oh yeah, this game is actually really good. And by the end, I got frustrated because of the Goron part on the moon, and I was like, damn, this game.
The Goron part of the moon.
That is the one like surefire blight on that game. That Goron thing on the moon. I'm just like, I almost gave up. I was like, I did all the masks. I don't even want the Fierce Deity mask anymore. But anyway, now it's the deliberation of we have Diddy Kong Racing, Ocarina of Time, Star Fox 64, Majora's Mask.
You could look at this multiple ways, but like I think the main way we should look at it is maybe like what doesn't make it.
I know, but the problem is, this is my personal opinion on this, is I don't think there should be 2 Zelda games on this list, and I think the only reason we're pushing 2 Zelda games on this list is because we're all being too stubborn about which one we want to put on. So we're sacrificing something else
That's
that
true.
deserves to be on here just because we can't agree on which Zelda game should be on here. And right? So, sorry,
Yeah.
Adriano, what did you say there?
Should we count them as one game then?
Oh,
No.
no.
No,
I-
one of the games was supposed
Oh.
to be an expansion of the other one, so if you're viewing it from that point of view, then yes, they're one game.
Oh. We're gonna be
But
here all night trying to
often
decide.
as-
Soul's
Honestly, we
masterwork.
probably could.
As it happens, oftentimes expansions are better than the base game, much like Wrath of the Lich King is better than base World of Warcraft.
True. And I mean,
World of
one of the
Warcraft, all the stuff that was in the previous game.
Yeah, but you don't
And-
do that while you're doing whatever.
and hey, one of the games spawned. I don't even think this is. I don't even think this is debatable, in my opinion. One of the games spawned what is now the second most iconic image in the Zelda series, in my opinion.
What, the Majora's Mask? Yes.
The
it
Majora's
is.
Mask is the second most iconic and recognizable like image or thing from Zelda, other than the Triforce itself.
No, I'd say the Master Sword is more recognizable.
Master
I'd
Sword
say.
is kind of a generic sword, though, for being honest.
Whoa.
I think honestly, the so the Triforce would be one, but I wouldn't. But I think when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, the Sheikah symbol that's like on the Sheikah slate that'll overtake Majora's Mask.
The eye,
Assuming
yes.
the Sheikah Slate is in Breath of the Wild 2. So once again, we need to make a decision. And this is literally everything we've done as a group of friends for anything has always come down to this question of Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. And we've always copped out by either putting them both on the list or putting them together. And I think we
I think
just
we have to be
need
ballsy and put neither of them on and take something we took off.
I agree.
Oh,
No,
I
because that's
really
the exact.
agree.
No,
At
that's the
this
exact
point-
same thing as
I
copping
know, I was
out.
making a joke.
That's the exact same thing as copping out.
But
'Cause if
is
we
it
can't-
copping out?
It is.
Well,
It
Yeah.
is copping
those
out. It
people
is totally
also
copping
might
out
be-
because you can't have an N64 experience without Ocarina of Time, and we all
Yes,
know
you
it.
can.
But
You
some would
absolutely
No, you
can.
It's on GameCube
But-
and it's
but
Virtual Console and it's on 3DS.
Gino, you have to remember, I didn't play Ocarina
Yeah,
of
so is
Time till
Majora.
2011, and I had an N64 experience.
But Gino, some
So-
people would say you can't have an N64 experience without Mario 64, and we took that off as well. Like my argument again is like I do think like while every Zelda game has its own identity, like I genuinely, as somebody who has literally played every single 3D Zelda at least
Every
7
year.
times each. I don't do it every year anymore, but
Oh,
I've played each one at least 7 times each, other than Breath of the Wild. But honestly, none of them are that different of an experience, save for Majora's Mask because of the tone and Skyward Sword because of the controls. But they're all very similar in experience. Like, I don't necessarily like. I get that people have a boner for Ocarina of Time because it was the first one and because it's this quintessential game in terms of the timeline. But really, there is nothing objective that makes Ocarina of Time better than any of the other 3D Zelda games. Nothing. Anybody could argue that any of the 3D Zelda games is the best one, and they would be valid in doing so because every single game in that series is fucking solid. Every single one is good, and I get that Ocarina of Time did it first, but it doesn't matter. The point
there
is,
isn't-
Spirit Tracks.
they're all good. I mean, 3D Zeldas. We're not going into 2Ds.
But Jules,
yeah,
there isn't anything objectively awful that could be considered like unplayable
Breaking.
and breaking in Ocarina of Time.
I mean,
that's
other than-
your opinion. Like that's what you're saying because you're interpreting these things about Majora's Mask as unplayable or broken. But whenever somebody presents that something from Ocarina of Time, for example, everything you do as a child being super boring, you're just not accepting that as a perspective because you really enjoy that game. Like I think that those temples are boring.
That boring. What?
Like I like it, but the thing is, I like it. I like Ocarina of Time, and in fact, I love Ocarina of Time, and I've played it a million times, and I still enjoy those early dungeons. But I don't see why Jabu Jabu's belly is any better of a dungeon than the Great Bay Temple, because really, it's not. Other than the fact that it's in Ocarina of Time, and people have this lens of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, there's how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 8 dungeons, and then there's 2 or 3 sub dungeons like Ice Cavern, Below the Well. And how can you say I know that one particular dungeon might not be comparable to Great Bay, but there's so many other dungeons in there. It's a complete experience. so
but-
much.
No, but I wasn't comparing it in terms of being quality. I was comparing it in terms of not being quality. I was saying like it's no like people like hearing something like, well, Great Bay Temple isn't great. Like Ocarina also has temples that aren't great, and I feel
Right,
like
but Ocarina has more
Yeah, but
temples. So
it's
Yeah,
not
if the
3/4
game
of
is
the game.
4 and 2 of them are bad, then that kind of
Yeah.
happens the experience. But if
But
Ocarina of Time,
it's
I
there's
think,
unfair to say
more
one
but
than
of
the
the
dungeons.
dungeons
If
is
one of them is
objectively
bad,
bad just because you don't
overall.
like it.
but that's what I'm saying. But what I'm ultimately saying here is I'm not saying that any of these dungeons are necessarily bad. What I'm saying is that I think it's unfair to state things like, well, Ocarina of Time doesn't have something broken as like an objective fact because not everybody perceives Majora's Mask as having something broken. Like I actually don't think any of the Zelda games have anything broken about them. There's nothing wrong with any of the core 3D Zelda games. They're actually all very well executed. Every single one does what it sets out to do. And that's what I'm saying is I don't think I think anybody could
Yeah,
say pick one of
but
the 3D Zelda games and say this is the best one and have a case for it
what would
because
be
they're
better
all
to
great.
recommend to somebody to start for the first time on
Yeah.
N64?
If they start someone starts Ocarina of Time, they can spend an hour and a half in the Deku Tree, looking around, and eventually get to the end of it. At the end of your 3-day timer, you have to restart. You have to redo all the keys. You got to
You
redo the
don't.
bosses. You do.
Yeah,
You don't have
You
to
have to get
redo
all
it.
the keys.
No, but you
You
don't
have
have to
to get all
redo
the
it.
keys again. You have to
But you don't
redo
have
the
to.
dungeon.
Yes, okay. You have to
You
redo
do.
the dungeon, but you don't have to redo everything. Your progress is still there.
Yeah.
You can still go
No.
there and start the dungeon from day one.
The point I'm trying to make is okay. You're in Snowhead Temple. You have to do all the jumps and stuff with the Goron. That one can be a bit of a maze. You're
No, I
in
know
there
what you
for
meant.
2 of the
No,
3 days. You lose.
I
You,
get
you
it,
lose all
Gino.
your keys when you have to go back in time and you have to restart it.
No, I know. I'm
That's
saying what
frustrating.
I understand, but I'm saying yes, you have to restart the dungeon, but you don't have to restart everything because you can go to the dungeon right away. And yes, you have to restart the. I understand that that's frustrating, but again, what I'm going to say is you are interpreting these things as flaws because you don't like them, not because they are flaws, because they are
No,
doing exactly what the game is
I'm trying
designed
to
to
take
do.
myself out of
But
this.
we are
From the point of
recommending it
view as
as
a
a first
first-time
game
new
for someone in
player, that's
N64.
frustrating. That can make them turn off the console and never go back to it. I'm taking
I am.
myself out of this.
I get it, and I get the frustration. All I'm saying is we're not recommending these to baby gamers. We're saying if you're a gamer and you're going to go back and play games on these N64s, these are the ones you should consider.
Yes, but we're
And
also recommending
And
this to
Ocarina of
first
Time
timers as well.
Ocarina of Time is a game more likely that is
okay,
a game
but
that most people would probably enjoy.
but that's the thing is like if I was telling gamers right now who maybe they've played Twilight Princess, maybe they've played Skyward Sword
Yeah.
to go back and play, I would personally I would tell them to go play Majora's Mask because it's a different experience.
What if they
And
don't want something
and
like that?
and like honestly, like and
But if they don't want
But
something
it's the
different, why should
only
they play the
one.
same game?
It's the only Zelda experience like that on N64. Like that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but I think you cannot have Majora's Mask without Ocarina of Time in your collection.
Okay, but you
64.
can't have Banjo Kazooie without Mario 64.
What?
No,
no. I
but
think,
this is
they're
but
inherently
Majora's
different
Mask.
enough.
But that's like saying that. But that's not true. It honestly is not true that you can't have Majora's Mask without Ocarina of Time. Because if that was true, Nintendo would have released Link to the Past remake before they released Link's Awakening remake. It's no different. It stars the same hero. It stars characters that you might recognize and has a little bit of a connection, but ultimately, there is nothing narratively you need from Ocarina of Time to play Majora's Mask. Literally
Gameplay
nothing.
wise. Gameplay wise.
But it teaches you all of those things again. That's the thing is it doesn't
In a time frame that
requ-
can be very stressful for first time players on N64 Zelda.
that's the thing. Like I wanted to reiterate, like once again, Ocarina of Time is a game that can accommodate both newcomers and veterans that if people that have played video games before.
Yes.
Whereas
Majora's Mask cannot.
Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, I would never recommend that to someone who has never played a Zelda game before.
Right.
But
Yeah.
for
somebody who's
someone,
never played a Zelda game, maybe.
yes,
You're
or
saying that
another,
somebody who's played
or for
Zelda
the
before.
or for the purpose of the argument for the Nintendo 64, like I don't know. I think and my mind, and I honestly think in the mind of like everyone, like in pop culture, when they think of N64 Zelda, the majority of people think of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
You can say what you want, you can think Majora's Mask is a better game, but I honestly don't think that can be denied.
Yeah, and just like it can't be denied that if anybody's thinking about Nintendo 64, they're thinking Mario 64, but that doesn't mean we're going to put on our list because
I
just
know,
because
but we're
just
but
because you
we
think
Mario
about something,
64 came off because of our recent experience with the game.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is I don't think that's an
We're
argument.
choosing, but we're choosing not to weigh it in some respects, like
all
as
I'm
much.
saying is
But like
the way I've interpreted these essentials, just like we're putting Mario Party 3 and just like we're putting Banjo-Kazooie, is these are experiences you can only get on the N64. And ultimately,
But
like
you
I
can
said, you can only, like, I understand that it's been remade, but I'm not talking about the remakes. I'm talking about I'm talking about in terms of the series. Like, you can only get the experience of Banjo-Kazooie from
Yeah.
N64 because
Yes.
that is where those are, and like even I understand Ocarina of 3D is on 3DS, but that's not what I'm talking about because you're still playing the N64 game. What I'm saying is Majora's Mask, you can only get that type of Zelda experience on the N64. Ocarina of Time is not the same thing. You
yes,
can
but
get an Ocarina of Time like Zelda experience somewhere else because
Majora's
Ocarina of
formula
Time.
was better and received better.
but
They would have made more of it. Also, there's a formula that works. I'm not denying that it's unique and different. I enjoy the Majora's Mask games, but
game.
you're right, game.
But I would not
They did.
recommend that.
I
the
would
first
not
time.
recommend
There's not
that
just
to
one.
someone.
There's not just one piece of like a criteria that we're ranking these games on. Like there's multiple,
Yeah,
right? Yes, okay, you can only play a game like Majora's Mask on N64, but the other criteria is would you recommend this game to someone who's never played a Zelda or played a Nintendo 64 game
As someone
before?
who's never played a Zelda game, starting with Majora's, I think it's fine as long as you can read. You can play that game.
Yeah, and a lot of people who have started with Majora's Mask have felt that Majora's Mask
Majora's
is the
Mask
strongest
was
one.
my
Now,
the second
yeah,
Zelda game I ever played, and I was like,
I
what the
knew
heck is
people.
this?
I knew people that have started with Majora's Mask and then Ocarina of Time, and they were frustrated and rage quit.
With Ocarina?
I can name him right now. I went to high school with him. He told me, he got stuck left and right.
Wait, in Majora's or in Ocarina?
He started with
Majora.
Majora's Mask, and then he played Ocarina of Time,
Which
and
one
he
do
was
you get
really
stuck in though?
frustrated.
I think it's important to play a more like Majora's Mask is more wide open as we've established. Like it's like a proto Breath of the Wild kind of type game where like you have like this big world and you have all these side quests and all these things that you can do. But I would I I'm happy I went through a more linear experience before I was given the option to play something like Majora's Mask, in which
Yeah,
I
like
came to the
think
conclusion
of like
myself that this is not the game for me. This is not something
yeah,
I thank God I didn't play this first. And I know
yeah, like
some people
sorry,
prefer the tone and the story of Majora's Mask, and that's more like that'll help them get through that experience. But a lot of people aren't like that, also.
and also think of it
So
this way. Think of it that you're recommending it to someone who's young, like a younger kid, 12, 10 years old, first time playing an N64.
Yeah, but we're recommending this to gamers. We're saying
well,
gamers.
no,
a 12 and a 10-year-old can't be a gamer.
Yeah, yeah, gamers play
That's not
Fortnite
what we're
left and
saying,
right.
Gino. We're
no,
saying
that's
that
not what they're saying, Gino.
we are
You take
as
all audiences.
I know you have
Sam's
to
father even
when we
found
set out to
Majora's
do the
Mask way more
when we
difficult
set
than
out and did the NES and SNES ones, we said that we're recommending this to like modern gamers, people who are already gamers, who have already had experience playing games. And I understand the argument of, oh, you can get frustrating, but honestly, like genuinely, I've only played Majora's Mask 3 fucking times. 3 times. And the last time I played it, which was recently, I had such an enjoyable experience because I'm older now and I'm actually like I actually took the time to slow down and be like I'm actually gonna explore everything, and I didn't try to rush through the game, and I really fucking enjoyed the game. I thought it was really good. I
Well,
thought it
that's your
was
first
done
playthrough.
really
What your
well,
first playthrough ever?
and that's what I'm saying.
That's your experience, and no one can take that away from you, right?
Yeah,
Like
we're talking about people's first time
I thoroughly.
experience with the game, not their third or fourth like us.
I know, but what I'm saying is we are recommending this to gamers who have played games before. When I played
Yes.
Majora's Mask for the first time, I got frustrated. I was a 7-year-old kid. We're not talking to 7-year-old kids right now. We're talking to people who, and mind you, that was my one of my first 3D games because we grew up in the dawn of 3D games just coming out. So there's a different context too. You can't
Yeah, but we
expect
but we
gamers
also
now. Like
yeah, but we
gamers
also
now are used to looking like sure they're used to like being handheld everywhere, but they're also used to worlds that are way more massive than Majora's Mask. And I don't think having to watch like and I genuinely just don't think that people are going to get frustrated and stuck in Majora's Mask. And even if they do, games like Dark Souls and Bloodborne are at an all-time high where people are getting frustrated and like trial and error. Like I don't think these are bad things. I think that's the way the game was designed.
I played Ocarina of Time over 10 times, and those mechanics, I wish I could feel those mechanics in other Zelda games. That's why I gravitate to Ocarina of Time the most. And just the Z targeting, the aiming, everything. It just feels so unique to N64.
Yeah, but they're
Um,
also in Majora's though. Those core
yeah,
mechanics
yeah,
in
I
the
know.
engine.
But Majora's like, for example, the archery minigame. The archery minigame. It's extremely difficult. The Octorok ones and the Swamp ones. How's a first time Zelda player on N64 gonna do
Well,
that?
they don't have to
And
do
the
them though.
Luna
They can
Gate,
try, and then if they don't want to keep going, they don't have to.
okay, so that's an optional side thing to do. What about everything else that's it's an optional side thing, right? That can
Well, I
be
mean,
that's that same
Like again, they could get like 99% through the dungeon, and then
and then
day three
time
ends,
runs
and
out, you got to
they
start over again.
Do you really
I
think
think
they're gonna?
okay.
Oh,
So
like
why
keep
should
in
I
mind,
spend
why
money
you
can I
on
guys,
the-
you always. Sorry, can I have
can I
one
just
thing?
yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
So people always say, "Oh, you have to start over." That's up
You
until
do.
NC4. That's how games were, right? You lost progress
No.
when you failed. That's kind of
Yeah,
how,
that's
like
kind
that's.
of
Well,
I agree.
yeah,
I
to
think
an
that's how games
extent,
should be.
but
You lose progress when you screw up,
Okay,
so you have to
I'm
do it
to an
again.
extent, to an
can I
extent,
just
yeah. But if you spend half an hour on it, and then you have to spend all
can
other
I
half
just
an
say this though? Can I just say this because this is something we also haven't considered. Okay, so on this list of the 4 games we still have, we have Diddy Kong Racing and we also have Star Fox 64. Now let me just say, Star Fox 64 and Diddy Kong Racing are fucking hard games. And you can get super frustrated with those games too. The coin challenges in Diddy Kong Racing are relentless. WizPig is a freaking joke. It's so hard. Star Fox 64 is the same thing. So
Yeah,
this is
but
what
the
I want.
overall experience of it isn't
Order
hard.
experience.
It is hard, but that's the thing is what I'm saying is I think the problem with this train of like argument is that we're saying, well, this one's harder and people might get frustrated. I think what you need to look at it is in an ideal situation where people don't run into like that you shouldn't consider challenge as even part of this. What
There
you
should
should say
also
is somebody
challenge should be
going
in games.
through an experience of Ocarina of Time and somebody going through an experience of Majora's Mask, comparing just the experiences, a full experience of those games. Which one do you think is more quintessential to an N64 player? And I don't think we need to worry about whether they're going to make it through it or not. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't have even considered Earthbound for SNES because that game's a joke, like so freaking hard. We wouldn't have
Now,
considered games like the first Super Mario Bros. on NES
Yeah,
because
if it
modern
was
gamers
purely
aren't going to get
accessible,
through that. You lose
seeing
progress in that game when you lose 3 lives. So I'm just saying I think difficulty is something you should not even be considering right now. You should just
I'm just
consider
saying,
the experience.
if
Okay,
you're not,
and you'll have a better experience in the dungeons of Ocarina of Time
yeah, I'm just
because
saying like if you're
they're
not
more
literate,
not
enjoyable.
only about the dungeons.
no, I'm just saying like if you're not literate with the mechanics of N64 Zelda games, I think Ocarina of Time would be the best one to start with because how do you know to hit this switch or place an Armo statue on this
Well,
switch or
you
bomb
don't
this
know in
wall? You don't
Ocarina
know to
either.
do
You just
that.
kind of have to like that's the point of the puzzle. You have to figure it out, and once you establish a pattern, you can apply it going forward. It's not like right away Ocarina's like you have to flip it, like you have to do this torch puzzle like this. You just kind of have
Yeah,
to
it
figure it
is.
out, and then next time you see torches, you're like, oh, I have to light these.
Right from Deku Tree. They even tell you, take this Deku stick, light that torch, press the switch. They give you like a step by step on the mechanics. Majora's Mask is none of that. Even Tattle is like, oh, you already know this enemy by now. Yet the Deku Tree was just an entire tutorial in the whole game.
Okay, if
Majora's
that is the
Mask, I don't
case
think
though,
it
it's
even
been a
has
while
it.
since I've done Tree, but if they straight up tell you use these torches to light the torches,
Yes.
and Mateo's friend still thinks it's one of the hardest things ever, I'm severely concerned.
Well,
Me
that's because
too.
they don't read.
Me too, actually. Yeah,
And
probably
one of them didn't know how to crouch, even though the thing was called the Hole of Z.
Yeah, if you don't read the signs or skip the dialogue, yeah, you'll probably be stuck. But
Well,
I just feel like you need a good understanding of the mechanics to Majora's Mask efficiently and have a more fun time with it. I mean, I love both games, but I would not recommend starting with Majora's Mask over
And
Ocarina of
Majora's
Time.
Mask is one of Adriano's favorites too.
I
think
just
it
don't
makes a
like.
good point.
I just don't like the idea that we're saying somebody's starting with Majora's Mask because we don't know the starting point of this person. This
So
person,
that's why
for
we
all
should
we
choose
know,
Ocarina of
That's why
Time,
you
because we don't
suggest
know the
something
starting
safe.
point.
that's what I'm saying. But start,
If you're
but it's
you're
not
suggesting
about
someone
being
to
safe. But we're not talking about being safe. We're not trying. I think we're missing the point of this essentials list. We're not trying to guess who these people are and what will cater to their every need. What we're trying to say is what are the unique integral experiences on N64, because we don't know. Somebody who we're saying this to might have played literally every Zelda game except for
Or there
Ocarina
might
of
not
Time and Majora's Mask, right? Or
They
maybe
could have
they've
played
never
in which
none.
played one.
both of
You
those
can
games would be appealing to someone who's played every Zelda game before.
And in my opinion, I disagree. I think that Majora's Mask offers something unique and
It
different
does, but I
and
wouldn't say
something.
it's starting.
But then
I'm
there's
not.
the
Of
chance
course, it's
that
not a
the
starting point, but
unique. But then there's the chance that the unique thing about Majora's Mask isn't appealing to every gamer, whereas there isn't something like that in Ocarina of Time that could fundamentally like break the game for them. Like
It could just be boring because they've done it
That's
repeat.
the
Like they've done the
disconnect.
same sort of thing over and over.
I just
you guys like the difference. We don't.
I
There are
know,
people
but I
that
don't
there's
think.
people that disagree.
But I
And I
don't
do like
think.
the
If
difference, but I wouldn't
okay,
recommend
let's
I
use this
get
like
that
for
there's
instance,
people
like
that, but I get that there's
let's
people
talk
that
about this in a
disagree.
sense. Let's talk about this in a sense. Like, okay, you're not okay. You have a driving license. Are you going to recommend someone to drive a motorcycle, or are you going to recommend them to drive a car? The
yeah.
person
This is
might not like
again. You're
motorcycles.
going back to the
Also,
same
you need
argument. You're going back to the same argument as if we're recommending this to a child. This is not
No,
the
we're
same
not
No,
recommending
thing.
to
it to a
someone that's
child.
never
Of
played
course,
Zelda.
if I'm recommending to my 16-year-old sister what to drive first, I'm going to tell her to drive the car. But we don't know if I'm
Right.
talking to somebody who's been driving for 30 years
So
or if I'm
that's
talking
why
to
it's
somebody who.
listed.
also they
So
require
That's
different
that's why
why
it's
you
licenses.
make
It's
a
not like
safe
just a crowd
suggestion.
pleaser.
But it's not. But it's not about making a safe suggestion because I'm trying to hammer in the point. We don't need to guess who these people are. I don't care
Then
who
why
the
are
audience
you?
member is. We are
Then why are
saying
you?
what is the because that's the. I'm saying stop
Why
getting
are
It's
you?
because of
stuck.
it's
Stop
because of the
getting stuck.
criteria that we have established when we first created this series.
Stop. We're getting too stuck in this idea of who the person is, and that was never the point of the essentials list. The point of the essentials list was what are unique experiences that are only offered on this console, and why I'm saying I think Majora's Mask again is because it is unique to this system. Ocarina of Time is not. Ocarina of Time, there are remnants of Ocarina of Time in every game that follows Majora's Mask.
Including
And
Majora's
Majora's Mask, and I get that you're saying, well, some of us don't like Majora's Mask, but guess what? Some people don't like Skyward Sword. Some people don't like Breath of the Wild. Some people don't like fucking Banjo-Kazooie. Some people don't like Mario Kart 64. I don't really care about the people who don't like it. All I'm saying is, if you try this game, you might not like it, but you'll get something different from it than if you try Ocarina of Time, which, sure, more people might like, but it might not be different than what they've already experienced. And I'm all about is I'm not trying to tell people these are games I'm recommending to you because you'll like them. I'm saying these are games I'm recommending to you because this is different from something you've already played. And that's why I'm recommending Majora's Mask. Because I don't want to recommend somebody to play something they've already played. That's
Okay.
me.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's the thing. Because you
It
could say
is
the
an
exact same
extremely
thing
unique
about the other
Zelda game.
side, right? What if you've never
Yeah.
played something like that before?
You can be an
Yeah.
experienced person and still not have played anything like Ocarina of Time. The same
true.
thing can be said. And one of them inherently is more friendly to someone who is new to that specific genre. You can have that experience. The person can be the person could be the best speedrunner of any video game. The person can be your little sister. The person can be the founder, like Mr. Miyamoto himself. If you have to make a choice between a game that is a little bit more safe when it comes to mechanics, story elements, as well as like a commentary, versus a game that is divisive in the community as well, I would pick something that is less divisive to recommend.
The word is divisive, but
Yeah, first of all, the word's divisive, so I don't want to get into that.
Okay,
But
nitpick at that.
Majora's Mask also isn't as divisive as you think.
yeah, it's definitely not.
It's
definitely
You
more
know, its critical
punishing than
reception was
Ocarina of Time.
fantastic, right? People didn't seem to. You have this idea that people hated that game, like it split the fan
Do
base.
not.
The
It was
only
very well received. And people
the
still
only thing literally the only
Majora's
thing
Mask is the reason
divisive.
why I'm friends with Adriano.
But
It
I
was the
know,
basis of my
Yeah,
friendship with him.
I
I
get it.
adore Majora's
But
Mask.
you
I have
realize
We
nothing
made
against
a
Majora's Mask.
model of Clocktown for our grade 6 shapes project.
and
Yeah.
maybe I get it,
That
but
game
maybe
is
that
like integral to who I am as a person. Would I recommend it to someone over Ocarina of Time? Never.
No.
Never.
but okay, and
It is a game
that's
that you come
that's
to after.
and that's where
Yes.
we disagree, because I'm sorry, like first of all, Majora's Mask is not divisive. Majora's Mask is only ever divisive in one context, and it's when you tell somebody who is super obsessed with the idea that Ocarina of Time is better, that Majora's Mask is better. If you say Majora's Mask is a good game, no Zelda fan will fight you on that. When you say Majora's Mask is better than Ocarina of Time, that's where the divisiveness happens because people are so gung ho about Ocarina of Time. So ultimately, I get it. You wouldn't recommend Majora's Mask over Ocarina of Time. I'm not trying to convince you of that. I'm not trying to get you to say that Majora's Mask is better than Ocarina of Time, but I'm not going to step down and say that Ocarina of Time can offer a gamer more of a unique experience than Majora's Mask can, because just from a game perspective, Majora's Mask is not only a unique experience as a Zelda game, it is a unique experience as a game, period. No other game uses a mechanic like that, a time-based mechanic.
Lightning
That
Returns.
what is that?
Did you say Lightning Returns?
Yep, they have a time
I've,
mechanic.
I'm Gino. I'm telling you right,
I am being a troll.
Gino?
I'm purely being a troll right now.
I know you're being a troll. I've played Lightning Returns. Don't even bring up Lightning Returns. That game has a 7-day system, and they used Majora's Mask as a way to promote it, and it's nothing like Majora's Mask. It has a 7-day system that literally does nothing. Anyway, I digress. The point is, the reason I think Majora's Mask is worth playing is because it is, honestly, as a game, not even as a Zelda game, as a game, is something unlike anything else you can experience anywhere. Ocarina of Time is not. Ocarina of Time not only has similar games within its own series, it has similar games outside of its own series. And that's unfortunately the fault with being a genre defining game, is that you're going to have copycats. And Majora's Mask sure is a bit more divisive. Majora's Mask sure didn't spawn a bunch of copycats, but that's why Majora's Mask is worth a play, because
Well,
it's something unique. It's
Let's
something
put
different.
Majora's Mask on there because it's not like they're not going to also have Ocarina of Time. But if you have Ocarina of Time, you should have Majora's Mask too.
That's just what it is. It's a unique experience. It's something different. I don't even know if I like it better than Ocarina of Time. I like Ocarina of Time a lot. Like, I just don't know.
I can't in good conscience. I can't.
I know, but it's just, I feel like you're looking at it from the perspective of, if we put Majora's Mask on this list, we're saying it's
not
better
top
than
5
Ocarina
unique
of Time.
experiences, though. It's top 5 essentials. Like if you had like if
Yes,
you're
Gino.
if you
But when I came up with the idea to make this series, that was the guiding like piece of
Principle is like
criteria. Like that was the
Yeah.
thing that was the
but like
point.
we've
Gino.
But
switched off of things
Gino
from
on
and
the
I
with the NES
loathe
list.
Majora's Mask with every fiber of my being. I
G-
despise that game. But if we are gonna go by the rules of this series that we want to continue doing, and we have to set a precedent, and that's the thing.
Gino, and the
I
thing is, like,
really, I'm willing to say that. Like, is there any way we could put both of these games on this list?
Or
Because-
honorable
I prefer we
mentions.
don't because I think
we
there's
can, but ultimately, I think
Because we always end up
hurts the
doing some
list.
kind of it
And I
hurts
think
the
it
list.
hurts the
There
list.
has to be one because we always cop out and make concessions, and it's you can't.
It hurts the list. That's the thing, is it hurts the
Well,
list
that's
if
the
you put
thing.
both.
Yeah.
And especially
Well,
on N64, where we had a short list of 17 games. This isn't like the NES where we had a short list of 8 games. This is a short
Yeah.
list of 17 games. Right?
Well, the Zelda games weren't on my list because they're ported and remade, so I didn't put them on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
they
like-
don't have to be in here.
I'm like, I understand Ocarina of Time. Like, I know it is such an influential game and it's so important. But Gino, it's the same thing as when we talked about NES and you argued for Legend of Zelda not being on the list. It's not that Legend of Zelda isn't a super influential game and an important game, but it's like, if you're gonna go back and play games on the NES, what is a unique, something different than what you can get now? And The Legend of Zelda 1 was not a unique enough experience because it's like, well, you can play games like that already on other consoles that are similar. Maybe some of them maybe might not like it as much as Zelda 1, but like they're similar.
I think we might have to like adjust the rules going forward for like the GameCube one, just because I think if we're gonna think
nothing
about
is gonna come close to this. You know.
yeah,
Yeah,
nothing's
I
gonna
don't
come
think
close to this. I
anything.
know, like this
Zelda's
was the
collection
bloodbath.
well,
has no
GameCube has
This
some
was
pretty
the-
unique stuff that might override some Nintendo stuff that you guys wouldn't be happy about. But
Kirby's
Yeah.
Air Ride, Melee.
I was thinking
Ultimate-
we're not
games like
talking about
Eternal
it yet. We're not
Darkness,
talking about it yet.
But yeah,
Anyway,
Yeah, we'll get there. I think
think-
ultimately you
I think what we had to do, Jules, from the very get go of this whole list is like, okay, what's something unique taking the time period into account? Because, like, of course, you're going to get a similar Zelda 1 or a similar Ocarina, Majora kind of vibe with games, obviously. We live in the future from when those things came out.
okay, but Gino, if I remember correctly, the argument we used when we used that regarding Earthbound wasn't based like it wasn't a factor of the experiences offered outside. The reason I used the time period as to the reason Earthbound was valid is because it encapsulates a lot of the stuff that like that was unique about the '90s. It doesn't really
Yeah, it
translate
wasn't
as
like
well with a Zelda game that's set in a medieval fantasy setting.
Yeah. And the thing is, here's the thing. I think it would be a disservice to say these are the 5 games you could go play on N64 and not include one of the Zeldas, because ultimately, like, everybody knows the Zelda experiences on N64 were defining. Both. Not just one of these games, both. And we are first and foremost recommending to everybody listening, and they already know we are passionate about both of these games, and we recommend both of these games for you to go play.
We can't pick one.
And picking one is stressful. I knew what I was going to be arguing when I came into this list, and the reason it was Majora's is because it's just...
I cannot, Jules. It's I
Okay,
cannot in
Gino,
good faith.
I understand you can't.
I
in good
cannot.
conscience do this, then leave,
recommend
because we need to
Majora's
get
to
this done.
someone in good faith.
Okay, but you dislike it.
yes,
But you dislike
Gino.
it, but
No,
I
it's
don't
not that
think
I
it should be
dislike it.
about...
No, I would never recommend that game to someone over Ocarina.
But
I
Gino,
wouldn't.
But
this
it's not
is the
about
thing,
over
though.
regardless of my
Ocarina.
like or dislike for it.
We're not saying
I
over
couldn't.
Ocarina. We're saying
So-
that we are.
If we have to put it to a simple vote, mine's going to be on Ocarina. You guys can come up with the rest of the list. I'm putting my foot down on that. That's where I'm going on this one. You can
Yeah,
pick
Yeah,
like
we
number
how
know
are we
two,
that.
gonna
guys.
You
decide
could have
on it? We're
listened.
gonna have to vote on
Yeah.
it, right?
This is this
We've been
is
arguing
thi-
about it for 3 hours.
this
How
is
are we
the
gonna
thing.
decide?
This is the thing, Gino. If
Yeah.
our opinions about these two games haven't been like, if listeners haven't figured that out by now, then like, I don't know, but like,
This
obviously
has definitely got to be
the
like
the
we
five
got
of
to.
us.
Don't worry.
Don't worry. The
Yeah,
five of us.
this is
We know where
Don't worry.
everyone
Don't worry,
knows
Jim.
where we stand on this now.
For the sake of this unique experience thing, I personally I'll compromise. I think Ocarina is a great game. I think it's a better game than Diddy Kong Racing. That being said, I think Diddy Kong Racing is more essential given that it's a unique experience. Especially if we're having another Zelda game on here, and Majora's offers more than Ocarina in that regard. I think
Majora's is
purely
more
from a-
unique. That's as most as you're getting out of me.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
Majora's
fine,
Mask
Gino.
It is
is
more
unique.
unique. That is the only thing I will give it.
Gino, I completely agree with you, but if we got to go based on the rules that we've previously established
Based on the rules,
for the
it is more
series,
unique. It'll go on the list. Based on the arbitrary rules that we set
well, there
up,
you have
it
it.
is more unique.
There you have
That is
it.
it.
There you have it. Yes, Majora's Mask will be put on the list, but with the biggest asterisk you could ever imagine.
Highly recommend Ocarina of Time
Okay,
playing.
but again, it's also not fair to say it's more because it's not a bad game. Okay,
No,
It's not
we're
a
not
bad.
putting
It's not
we're
a bad
it's
game.
not
It's not a
we're not
bad
putting
game. We're
games on
still
here
all
purely
friends.
because
This
they're
is the
unique. They
fun.
also have to be good games.
I mean, we put 17 good
Otherwise,
games on this
we're gonna
list.
put on Iggy's Wrecking Ball for Justin because that's a unique game.
No,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
that was purely for the memes. It wasn't one of the games that we actually are hardcore considering.
Yeah. No, I know.
No
No, but
kidding.
what he's
This
saying
is definitely
is
the bloodbath that I wanted it to
what
be.
he's saying.
I will say that.
I know what he's saying is like Majora's Mask is not a bad game. I think we're all in agreement. Mine is, I think maybe I didn't know this, but apparently Gino's the one who thinks Majora's Mask is a bad game. But that's okay.
I think Majora's Mask is a legitimately bad game. Like, I
Okay.
legitimately think that I've thought that for
I do
years.
not think it's a bad game. I will just never vouch for it over top of Ocarina.
But I just want to play Zelda right now.
Yeah, I know.
Adriano, another randomizer. Let's
Adriano,
go.
I could recommend you a game called Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I think you would enjoy.
You know what?
Yup.
You would very much
Adriano,
enjoy it.
I
Also.
could recommend a game to you called The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks that you've never played and you might enjoy.
That is another
no,
issue. We got
no.
Adriano. We got to get you to
I'm
play
not
that
wielding
game.
a
I could
locomotive
recommend a
sword,
game to
no.
you called Dark Souls that was
Adriano,
inspired
Adriano,
by Zelda.
before
Okay,
we
I'll
I
never
think,
have Link to
I
wield
think
a
we should
locomotive
wrap.
sword.
We're digressing
I think
too
we should
much.
wrap. We're slowly.
We're
going
digressing.
insane.
Yeah, we're digressing
Okay.
too much, but Adriano can never play Spirit Tracks. Okay?
No.
Never.
As soon as he plays his Spirit Tracks,
Because
Because then the
Gino
bigger
can
Zelda
because Gino I don't even know if you know this, Adriano, but Gino and me have this running joke where Gino's like, Jules, you're not the biggest Zelda fan I know. Adriano is, and we're always going back and forth about it. And as soon as you said you hadn't played Spirit Tracks, I'm like, Gino, you can't say it anymore. Adriano hasn't played one of the games. You gotta consider me you're the biggest Zelda fan you know now. I'm not quantifying your
Who should
fandom. It's
told him
just
that?
it's more
So
more
if
of a
I
joke.
do, I'm the biggest Zelda fan.
Well,
I haven't seen Zelda 2 or 1 yet. Not the last
no, I know.
ones.
No, I know. We're not actually
It-
quantifying
it-
our fandom. It's more of a joke.
I'll do
this
it.
is
I'll
a
beat
joke.
all the games. That's what it's.
Yep, you got to do it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna add Majora's Mask to the list then, which means then Star Fox 64 and Diddy Kong Racing. So our final 5 then, with the big asterisk, of course, we recommend every game we talked about today. Obviously, we had a lot to say in regards to Zelda, and the final 5 we're able to come up with as hard, bloodbathy, and like killing each other's firstborn children and like taking each other's limbs. Like, you should see the bloodbath over here. But we have in the wreckage, in the
Over guy.
in the ground zeros, we have Mario Party 3, Banjo Kazooie, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, Star Fox 64, and Diddy Kong Racing as the 5 essential N64 games. So
I wanted to make a quick joke about how Banjo's the real winner on this list because he had 2 games that he appeared in. he's made 2 appearances in these 5 games. No other character has that over him.
We hope you enjoyed part 2 of our N64 Essentials episode. Just a reminder that our next episodes will be part of our E3 marathon of episodes. So I said last episode that we would speak about this a little bit, but what's going to happen is for the next couple weeks, as E3's on, we're going to have prediction episodes, we're going to have live reactions, some breakdown episodes, and everything within the E3 period will be considered its own season of the Hub World podcast, in the sense that it will not increase our number count. Once the E3 season is done, we will return with episode 21. So we look forward to seeing you during E3. Hopefully, we will have a new Zelda sequel to battle out sometime when we do the Switch Essentials, sometime soon. And thank you all for listening. Make sure you give us a like and a comment. If you want to weigh in on, tell us, are you a Majora's or are you an Ocarina fan? Or are they both terrible? So please tell us. Just no Gino fans and Gino the puppet. And yeah, have a wonderful E3 week. We look forward to connecting with you soon. Have a great one.
Get hyped.